woman in aisle 7. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead as I pushed my shopping cart through the produce section. It was a Tuesday afternoon around 3 o'clock, and the grocery store was mostly empty. Just the way I liked it. Peaceful, quiet. A moment to myself after a long day at work. I had stopped by the fresh vegetables, examining a bunch of kale when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, deliberate footsteps. The kind that make you aware someone is there, even though you haven't turned around yet. Then came the voice. I know you. 3 simple words, soft but certain. A woman's voice. I turned around slowly, still holding the kale in my hand. She stood about 6 feet away, wearing a black dress that looked too elegant for a grocery store. Her blonde hair fell in gentle waves past her shoulders, and her eyes, blue and intense, were fixed directly on me. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't frowning either. She just looked certain, like she had found something she'd been searching for. I glanced around, wondering if she was talking to someone else, but there was no one nearby. Just me, her, and rows of colorful vegetables stretching out behind us. I'm sorry, I said, my voice uncertain. Do we know each other? She tilted her head slightly, studying my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. We've met before, she said. I'm sure of it. I searched my memory, trying to place her face. Had we worked together, gone to school together, met at some party I'd forgotten about? But nothing came to mind. I would have remembered someone like her, someone who carried themselves with such quiet confidence, who wore a cocktail dress to buy groceries on a Tuesday afternoon. I don't think so, I said gently. I'm pretty good with faces, and I don't remember meeting you. She took a step closer. It was a long time ago, she said. Maybe you don't remember, but I do. I remember everything about that day. A strange feeling washed over me. Part curiosity, part unease. There was something in her eyes that made me want to listen, to understand. But there was also something that made me want to turn around and walk away, to pretend this conversation had never happened. I set the kale down in my cart, buying myself a moment to think. When was this, I asked. 7 years ago, she said without hesitation. September 15th. It was raining. September 15th. 7 years ago. I closed my eyes and tried to remember. 7 years ago, I had been living in a different city, working a different job, living a different life. September 15th. The date sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. Where did we meet? I asked. At a bus stop, she said. Downtown. You were waiting for the number 12 bus. I was sitting on the bench, crying. And then, like a door opening in my mind, the memory came flooding back. I had been waiting for the bus after a particularly difficult day at work. I had just been passed over for a promotion I'd worked toward for months, and I was feeling sorry for myself, staring at my phone, barely noticing the world around me. But then I'd heard someone crying, soft, muffled sobs. I'd looked up and seen a young woman sitting on the bench beside me, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. Rain was starting to fall, light drops at first, then heavier. I remembered hesitating. Part of me wanted to mind my own business, to let her have her privacy. But something about the way she was crying, so lost, so alone, made me speak up. Are you okay? I had asked. She had looked up at me then, her eyes red and swollen. She'd shaken her head. No, she'd said. I'm really not. I'd sat down beside her, even though my bus was coming soon. Do you want to talk about it? I'd asked. And she had. For 20 minutes, while the rain soaked us both, she had told me everything. She'd told me about the job she'd just lost, about the apartment she couldn't afford anymore, about the boyfriend who'd left her for someone else, about how she felt like her entire life was falling apart, and she didn't know how to put the pieces back together. I'd listened. I hadn't offered advice or tried to fix her problems. I'd just listened. And when she was finished talking, I'd said something simple, something I barely remembered now. It's going to be okay, I'd told her. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're stronger than you think, and this won't last forever. My bus had come and gone. I'd missed it, sitting there in the rain with a stranger. Eventually, we'd both stood up, and I'd given her the umbrella I'd been carrying in my bag. She'd tried to refuse, but I'd insisted. Take it, I'd said. You need it more than I do. and then we'd gone our separate ways. I'd never seen her again, until now. I looked at the woman standing in front of me, and suddenly I could see that crying girl from 7 years ago in her face. The eyes were the same, the shape of her jaw, but everything else had changed. She looked stronger now, more confident, like someone who had put her life back together piece by piece. "I remember," I said quietly. "The bus stop, the rain. You were going through a hard time." She nodded, and for the first time she smiled. It was a small smile, but genuine. "The hardest time of my life," she said. "I was at rock bottom that day. I didn't think things could get any worse. And honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep going." My heart tightened in my chest. "I didn't realize it was that bad." "You couldn't have known," she said. "But what you said to me that day, it helped more than you'll ever understand. You told me I was stronger than I thought. And after you left, I kept thinking about that. I kept repeating it to myself. I'm stronger than I think. I'm stronger than I think." She paused, looking down at her hands. That night, instead of giving up, I started making a plan. I found a new job, a better job. I moved to a new apartment. I started rebuilding my life, and whenever things got hard, whenever I wanted to quit, I thought about what you said. About being stronger than I thought. I didn't know what to say. I had no idea that such a brief encounter could have meant so much to someone. I had almost forgotten about it entirely. Yet it had stayed with her for 7 years. "I've been looking for you," she said. "Not actively, but I've always hoped I might run into you again. I wanted to say thank you. To tell you that those words you gave me, they changed my life." I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I didn't do anything special," I said. "I just listened." "Sometimes that's everything," she said. "Sometimes that's exactly what someone needs. A stranger who cares enough to sit in the rain and listen. A stranger who sees you when you feel invisible." We stood there in silence for a moment, surrounded by vegetables and the soft hum of refrigerators. Other shoppers passed by, oblivious to the moment unfolding in aisle 7, oblivious to the fact that 2 lives had intersected 7 years ago, and now again in the most ordinary of places. "How are you now?" I asked. "Are you okay?" She nodded, and this time her smile was wider. "I'm more than okay," she said. "I'm happy, really genuinely happy. I have a career I love. I'm getting married next month. I have good friends, a good life. Everything I thought I'd lost, I found it again. Better than before." "That's wonderful," I said, and I meant it. "I'm so glad you didn't give up." "I'm glad too," she said, "and I'm glad I finally got to thank you." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small card. "This is my business card," she said. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, please reach out. I mean it. I owe you more than a favor." I took the card, reading her name. "Sarah Mitchell, event coordinator." "You don't owe me anything," I said. "But I'll keep this, and I'm really glad you're doing well, Sarah." "Thank you," she said, "for everything. Then and now." She gave me one last smile, then turned and walked away, her black dress swishing softly as she disappeared around the corner, toward the bakery section. I stood there for a long moment, holding her business card, thinking about the strange and beautiful way our lives had crossed paths. Twice now, 7 years apart. As I pushed my cart toward the checkout line, I thought about all the small moments we live through every day. The ones that seem insignificant at the time, the ones we forget about almost immediately. But sometimes those moments matter. Sometimes they change everything. I had given Sarah a few minutes of my time and a handful of words on a rainy day 7 years ago, and those few minutes had been exactly what she needed to keep going, to find her strength to rebuild her life. I wondered how many other moments like that existed in my life, moments I'd forgotten, encounters with strangers that had meant more than I'd ever know. As I loaded my groceries onto the conveyor belt, I made a silent promise to myself to be more present, to pay more attention, to remember that every interaction, no matter how small, has the potential to matter deeply to someone. Because you never know when a few kind words might change someone's life. And you never know when a stranger in a grocery store might remember you 7 years later just to say thank you.